This story begins at the Adelhart estate, where our protagonist, Isabella Barnine, is having a small meeting with Duke Cassian Adelhart. She feels his cold, judgmental gaze, looking at her as if she were his greatest enemy. What's worse is that she knows in a way he's not entirely wrong about that. As soon as she takes a sip of the tea that was served to her, he gets straight to the point and asks her the reason for her visit. It must be something important since she hadn't warned him beforehand that she was coming. Isabella takes a deep breath and then says she wishes to end their engagement. The Duke is surprised, but she says she knows neither of them wants this engagement, and that this way it will be better for both. In truth, we find out that our protagonist actually transmigrated into a novel she read in her past life. She used to be a woman named Soyun who lived in South Korea, until exactly 1 week ago when, after a car accident, her soul was transported into the novel, and she reincarnated as Isabella Barnine, an extremely cruel woman who, after marrying Duke Cassian, turned the life of Lucius, the Duke's illegitimate son, into a living hell. All of it out of jealousy, because like him, she too was a bastard child of a noble. But unlike him, who was treated well and loved by his father, she had always been mistreated by the Barnine family. She hurt him both physically and mentally, believing he deserved to go through the same hell she endured in her own family. And once her evil acts came to light, she was expelled from the Adelhart family and wandered the streets until she fell ill and died alone in a monastery. But our protagonist, determined to survive, as soon as she realized who she had become, began crafting a plan to stay alive. She could simply try to be a good mother to Lucius, but that would be complicated since Duke Adelhart hates her, and she doesn't want to be married to someone who hates her. So she decided the best course of action was to cancel the engagement. With that, she set off for the Adelhart estate to carry out her plan as soon as possible. This brings us back to the opening scene, her small meeting with Duke Cassian, right after she informed him that she wanted to cancel the engagement. The Duke is confused by Bella's suggestion and questions whether this is her will or an order from Count Barnine. Bella says this is what she wants, and that in fact her father doesn't know anything about it. Upon hearing that, the Duke stands up, saying that in this case their conversation ends here. But Bella refuses to give up. She stands up behind the Duke and grabs his hand, trying to stop him from leaving. Angrily, he jerks his hand away so she'll stop touching him. Bella then reveals that she knows the real reason why he agreed to marry her. Her father, Count Barnine, knows a secret about the Duke, and in exchange for his silence, he forced Cassian to marry her. This infuriates Cassian. So you know? And even so, you want to cancel our engagement? Bella calmly says she has information the Duke wants, and that she'll keep her father silent. In exchange, she wants him to call off the engagement. Suspicious, Cassian asks how she knows so much. Clearly unable to say it's because she read the novel, Bella simply says she can't reveal how she found out, but assures him that only she and the Count know about it. She waits anxiously for Duke Cassian's reply after saying that. After thinking for a few minutes, he says he will consider what to do and will get in touch, but asks that for now. She leaves. On her way to her carriage, Bella runs into Lucius, Duke Cassian's son. A bit shy, he invites her to have afternoon tea with him. The maid accompanying him reminds him that he should introduce himself first. But before he can do that, Bella greets him with a lovely smile, addressing him as young Master Adelhart. Lucius is impressed and happy that she knows who he is. Bella formally introduces herself to Lucius while thinking about his invitation. She knows that if everything goes according to plan, she should soon be divorced, and if she accepts his invitation, he might start to hope that she'll become his future stepmother. Politely, she says that unfortunately she already has another engagement and will have to decline the invitation. Lucius, embarrassed by Bella's refusal, apologizes for the sudden invitation. Bella says he doesn't need to apologize, but unfortunately she can't accompany him. With that, she says goodbye and leaves. She remembers Lucius from the novel. A cold and calculating man just like his father, who doesn't hesitate to destroy his enemies. Despite that, the Lucius she met today was just a sweet and gentle child. She knows that in the novel, during his childhood, he was alone amidst a game of greed and power. When his father proclaimed him heir, many were against it. They believed Duke Cassian should wait to have a legitimate son and then decide who would be the heir, as choosing a commoner bastard was absurd. The Duke always defended Lucius and made a point of showing everyone that this was his decision and that he would punish anyone who opposed it. But without realizing it, this ended up placing more pressure and more eyes on Lucius. The young ladies of the kingdom gossiped about Lucius and speculated who his mother might be, assuming she was just a peasant living in the slums since the Duke hadn't brought her along with the boy. They amused themselves speculating what they would do with the poor child if they married the Duke. Whether they would send him to an academy in another country, or maybe even to a monastery. Meanwhile, poor Lucius lived in the middle of all that tension, hearing those absurdities from all sides, wishing for only one thing: a mother. Bella returns to Count Barnine's estate. She is still thinking about Lucius, worried he might be upset or crying because she refused his invitation. Maybe if she had reincarnated as someone else, she could have taken care of Lucius. Scolding her own thoughts, she reminds herself that she needs to focus on ending this engagement so she can live a better life. Upon entering the mansion, a blonde man asks where she's been. Bella gets irritated seeing that her younger brother, Derek Barnine, is home. Derek, noticing that his sister didn't answer him, asks again where she's been. Bella continues to ignore her brother, inwardly annoyed that he waited for her just to nag her. She begins to think about how Isabella from the novel, despite being a villain, was nothing more than a victim. Her mother was a maid in the Barnine household who unfortunately caught the Count's attention due to her rare beauty. Not long after that, Isabella was born. Worried about what might happen to her daughter, her mother fled. Unfortunately, after some time, she ended up contracting an illness. Afraid of leaving her daughter helpless, she wrote a letter to the Count asking for help. When the Count discovered that the runaway maid had borne a daughter, instead of helping them, he sent someone to kill them. But as soon as he saw Isabella, he realized she was just as beautiful as her mother, and that, with luck, he could marry his bastard daughter off to someone for a good profit. He tricked the girl by saying that if she came with him and behaved, he would help her mother by sending her to a doctor. With no choice, and in an attempt to save her mother, Isabella went to live with the Count, where she lived like a sinner. Derek was furious with the Count because of that, and took out his anger on Isabella. Bella is pulled from her thoughts when Derek grabs her arm. Angry that she dared to ignore him, she tries to pull away, saying that she's tired and has nothing to say to him. Derek grips Bella's wrist tightly, growing more and more irritated with her, thinking she's challenging him because she's engaged to Duke Adelhart. But he insists that nothing has changed. Hearing that, Bella challenges him even more, stating that things are different. Because by marrying the Duke, she'll become one of the 3 duchesses of the Empire, and he'll have to respect her. Derek, angered by the truth, shoves Bella hard, causing her to fall down the stairs. Bella wakes up the next day in her room, confused about how she got there. The last thing she remembers is falling down the stairs. Her maid enters the room asking if she's okay and if she feels any pain anywhere. Bella replies sleepily that her whole body feels a bit sore. Annie, her personal maid, worriedly says the pain must be because young Master Derek pushed her down the stairs. She hands over some painkillers the family doctor prescribed for her, along with a letter that arrived bearing the Adelhart seal. Bella is surprised by the unexpected letter. Could it be that the Duke has already decided whether he'll accept ending the engagement? Actually, the letter is from Lucius. He says in the letter that his tutor taught him the proper way to invite someone for afternoon tea is through a formal invitation. That's why he's sending the letter, to formally invite her to have afternoon tea with him. Without realizing it, Bella's eyes fill with tears. In her past life, she had no memories of her biological mother. So when her father remarried, having a stepmother felt like a dream come true. All she ever wanted was a happy family. But one day, she overheard her parents talking through a crack in the door. Her stepmother was pregnant, and since the baby was about to be born, she wanted to send our protagonist to a boarding school because taking care of 2 children would be too much work. That's why her eyes filled with tears, because she knows the pain of being rejected by those you love. Bella writes a reply to Lucius and asks her maid to deliver the response as soon as possible. She leans against the chair, exhausted, thinking about how to deal with Derek. Maybe she should get revenge on him before canceling the engagement with Cassian. Realizing that even after canceling the engagement, she'll still need to find a way to escape her family, because she's sure the Count will arrange another man for her to marry the moment the engagement is over. She needs to get money and information if she wants to survive. Wearing a discreet cloak, she heads to the Information Guild. Meanwhile, at the Duke's estate, Lucius is excited to have received Lady Barnine's reply. He opens the letter and begins to read. Lady Barnine writes that she appreciates the invitation, but unfortunately already had other commitments and couldn't join him. Lucius is sad about the rejection and asks his maid if maybe Lady Barnine doesn't like him because he's a bastard. He fears that's the reason she's trying to cancel the engagement. Sweetly and hopefully, he tells his maid he believes he can make Lady Barnine change her mind. The maid gently assures him that he's an adorable child, and surely Lady Barnine will be able to see that, and maybe she's just truly busy. Lucius then decides to buy a gift for Isabella. Everyone likes receiving gifts. Maybe it'll cheer her up and make her reconsider her answer. They both head into the city. In the city center, our protagonist is walking, searching for the way to the guild when she hears a familiar voice. Looking toward the voice, she sees Lucius running excitedly while looking back at his maid. This causes him to trip on a stone and fall. Bella knows she shouldn't get more involved with Lucius, but she can't ignore him. After all, she was a fan of the novel and knows how adorable Lucius is. She approaches him, asking if he's okay. Lucius is surprised to see her. She tells him he should go back to the Adelhart estate to take care of the scrapes on his knees. He refuses, saying he came to the city to buy a gift for her. Bella is happy about the gesture, but reminds him that health is the priority. Lucius seizes the opportunity and invites her to join him for tea today. Noticing how determined young Lucius is, Bella ends up giving in. Surrounded by various sweets and cookies, Bella asks Lucius the reason why he wanted so badly to have tea with her. Embarrassed, Lucius says the reason was to formally ask her to become his stepmother. With a worried expression, Bella says that unfortunately, she believes she can't be his stepmother. Lucius, getting straight to the point, asks if it's because he's a bastard. He overheard the ladies in the garden gossiping about him. Bella begins to say that it's not because of that. The door opens, and Duke Cassian, upon entering the tea room, is surprised to see Isabella there. He questions why Isabella is alone with Lucius. Isabella understands Duke Cassian's reaction. After all, the reason a daughter born out of wedlock like her was able to become engaged to such an important man. And the reason her father, the Count, was able to blackmail the Duke is because Lucius is not actually Cassian's son. Julia Adelhart, though her name had long been forbidden in the Adelhart estate, is the first daughter of the former Duke Adelhart and Cassian's older sister. She was the only person who was kind and understanding to Cassian while he suffered in his childhood at the brutal hands of their father. She was the only real family Cassian had. As time went on and the siblings grew older, they ended up entering different academies, which caused them to drift apart. Even so, Cassian felt relieved, believing that this way his sister would be able to escape their father's cruel grip. But unfortunately, the former Duke discovered that Julia was pregnant, and he punished her severely for daring to carry a child without a father. When Cassian found out, he did everything he could to protect his sister from their father's tyranny. Julia was always deeply grateful to Cassian for caring for and protecting her and her future child. Unfortunately, Julia died during Lucius's childbirth. Cassian, trying to protect his sister's memory, knowing that even after death she would be ridiculed for having had a bastard child, decided to take on the burden as if it were his own, saying that Lucius was actually his illegitimate son and would be his successor. Cassian believed everything would be fine, until a year ago when Lucius suddenly fell ill. A mark, a black rune, appeared on Lucius's chest. That's when Cassian discovered that Lucius wasn't sick but cursed by a hereditary curse. Cassian assumed the curse was related to Lucius's biological father. The Duke began the search for Lucius's real father, but with no luck, he couldn't find out anything. Until one day, Count Barnine came to him, saying he knew the truth about Lucius's real parents. Cassian tried to act indifferent, saying what the Count was saying was complete nonsense because he was Lucius's father. Revealing what he knew, the Count said he was aware that Lucius's mother was in fact Cassian's older sister, Julia Adelhart. With a folded piece of paper in hand, the Count told Cassian that written on that paper was the name of Lucius's biological father, and that if he agreed to marry his daughter, Lady Isabella, he would not only give Cassian the paper, but also ensure the truth died with him on his deathbed. Returning from her thoughts, Isabella knows that Cassian's reaction is understandable because just like her father, she too used what she knew to convince the Duke. Lucius, noticing the harsher tone in his father's voice, says Isabella didn't do anything wrong, and that he was the one who invited her for tea. Cassian, ignoring his son's words, orders him to go to his room. Lucius hesitates, but Isabella reassures him, saying he can go. After all, she really does need to talk with Duke Cassian. As soon as Lucius leaves, Cassian questions why he wasn't informed of Isabella's presence on the estate. She explains that she coincidentally ran into Lucius in the city and accepted his invitation for tea. She stands and apologizes to the Duke, as it seems accepting Lucius's invitation offended him. As she stands, Cassian notices purple marks on Isabella's wrist. Instinctively, he grabs her hand, asking her to wait. He asks what happened to her, and whether Count Barnine was responsible for those marks. Embarrassed, Isabella explains that it's not what he thinks, that they're close to canceling their engagement and will soon be strangers, so Cassian shouldn't be worried about her. But Cassian argues that he never agreed to end the engagement, and clearly he is worried about what might have happened, that she's still his fiancée, and he has a right to know if something's going on at the Barnine estate. Relying only on what she concluded from reading the novel, our protagonist doesn't believe Cassian's words or concern. Asking Asking him to let her go, she says she simply tripped and fell down the stairs last night, but that it was nothing serious. Cassian, realizing Isabella won't tell him the truth, lets her go. At the mansion, after placing Isabella in a carriage back home, he walks away, irritated. He orders Logan, his assistant, to investigate how Isabella is treated by her family. The marks on Isabella's wrist, Cassian assumes, are signs she's suffering some kind of abuse. The scene cuts to our protagonist in the carriage. She asks the coachman to drop her off on Courtney Street in the city, but he says he has specific orders from the Duke to take her to the Barnine mansion. With pleading eyes, Bella says she really needs to take care of some things in the city and promises she won't tell anyone he dropped her there. Convincing the coachman, Bella arrives at the place she believes to be the Information Guild, a small pub in the city. She walks up to the counter, knocks twice on the table. Knock, knock. "I'd like a glass of Ascent with lemon and ice," Bella requests. Ascent is a popular drink in the Empire, but when ordered in this way at this pub, it becomes the password to request an audience with the Sierra Guild, one of the city's information guilds. The bartender asks Isabella if she's sure that's what she wants to order, and she confidently says yes. She knows the secret code because in the novel, 13 years into the future, after Cassian's death, Lucius discovers the truth about his real parents. And feeling betrayed by Cassian, he seeks out the leader of the Sierra Guild to learn more about Cassian and his past. In the end, he ends up becoming friends with the guildmaster, and because of that, Bella knows how to request an audience, and that she can trust the guild leader. But beyond trust, Bella knows that information is gold to these guilds. And since she reincarnated into the novel she read, she possesses a wealth of knowledge, some of it so juicy that Samuel, the guild leader, won't be able to resist. Isabella is led to a private room and the attendant asks her to wait a moment. He offers her a glass of water while she waits. At that moment, Bella notices a familiar scent coming from the man, the scent of Raquera, an extremely expensive herb famous for its calming fragrance. Noticing this, she grabs the man's wrist. Smiling, she says there's no reason at all to wait. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Samuel, leader of the Sierra Guild." Curious, Samuel asks how she knew it was him. Bella explains that she knows Samuel's younger sister has always had very fragile health, and that he frequently uses Rachera to soothe her. So the herb's scent has basically become Samuel's signature fragrance. She adds that, beyond that, the ring on Samuel's finger is an item that allows him to change his appearance. Impressed, Samuel smiles, praising our protagonist's cleverness. Removing the ring from his finger, he says it seems she might be worthy of his time. With platinum white hair and golden eyes, Samuel reveals his true appearance. He asks what Isabella wants from him. She says she'd like to sell an item for money, and also asks him to locate a doctor named Aaron Lawner. She has red hair, green eyes, and lives on the outskirts of the city. Bella knows that this doctor, in the future, will create the cure for Samuel's sister's illness. Samuel asks what he'll receive in exchange for his services. Touching a pouch on the table, Bella says what's inside should be more than enough. But since she plans to use the guild's services frequently, it would be good to build a good relationship with its leader. She will tell him what he needs to do for his sister to get better. Samuel is surprised by Isabella's offer. He's been searching for a cure for 7 years ever since his sister was born, which makes Isabella wonder if she can truly cure Arya. Our protagonist tells us that the title of the novel she reincarnated into is Arya of Light, and that Arya, Samuel's sister, is the female protagonist of the novel. Arya is fragile, but has a heart as warm as anyone could have. And Lucius, who became jaded after Cassian's betrayal, is moved by her gentle personality. And the divine power that had been wreaking havoc on Arya's health ended up being the light that freed Lucius from the curse. Boil a bit of talon flowers in water and have your sister drink it. They grow in the kingdom of Sisia and are known to give strength to those who consume them, Bella explains to Samuel. Samuel, cautious, asks why he should believe her. Bella says whether or not he believes her words is his choice. He explains that unless he has proof the remedy is effective, he won't be able to give her the information she requested. Bella says she understands Samuel's point, but insists that finding the doctor will benefit him as well. Our protagonist believes she'll be able to forge a powerful alliance with Samuel if she becomes Aaron's sponsor and helps her develop a cure for Arya's illness. Samuel agrees to help Isabella and asks if there's anything else she wants. With a smile, Isabella says yes. But for now, we don't know what else she asked of Samuel. At the beginning of the evening, Isabella returns to the Barnine mansion. Relieved that no one noticed her absence, as soon as she reaches her chambers, one of her maids informs her that dinner is served. When she enters the dining room, she finds her whole family gathered. The Count, his 2 sons, and the Countess. Isabella notices that tonight the Count is more observant than usual. Count Barnine notices his daughter looking at him and asks why she's staring. Bella apologizes and says she was just thinking about something. The family dines normally, and as soon as the Count finishes, he calls for his daughter. Isabella, I heard you paid a visit to the Adelhart estate yesterday. Why didn't you tell me about it? Bella knows she should lie to her father, but she ends up saying she went to meet the Duke to request the cancellation of their engagement. And yes, I didn't understand why she didn't lie either. Hopefully later in the story this will be explained. Initially in disbelief at what he just heard, he questions her again. With a smile on her face, she says she told the Duke she wasn't interested in marrying him. Enraged, the Count approaches Isabella and slaps her across the face. He looks at her with a look of disgust. Do not test my patience, Isabella. Leaving the dining hall, clearly furious, the Count informs her that he will speak to the Duke, but the wedding will go on as planned. Mark my words, Isabella, so you never dare defy me again. As soon as the Count leaves, Derek takes the opportunity to mock his sister, saying she really must have lost her mind. Is that all you have to say to me? Isabella asks, trying to keep her composure despite the large slap mark on her cheek. Confused, Derek asks what she expected from him. An apology or a sign of concern, perhaps? Isabella answers. After all, he pushed her down the stairs the night before. Laughing scornfully, Derek says Isabella has been acting really strange lately, and that she should shut up and disappear like she used to. Ignoring her brother's comment, she asks if he truly doesn't feel guilty for what he did. Not even dead would I apologize to you. Derek snaps back. Bella discreetly spills a glowing liquid. She bumps into him, thinking she gave him a chance to redeem himself. Then we see that, in fact, the bump was to make the shimmering liquid hit Derek's foot without him noticing. We're transported back to that conversation Bella had with Samuel earlier. The extra request was something that would make someone fall down the stairs without getting seriously hurt. Samuel finds the request odd and rather mild. In truth, Bella doesn't feel comfortable making others suffer. But that doesn't mean Derek doesn't deserve punishment. Samuel, smiling, hands her a small vial with a glowing blue liquid. We return to the present and see Bella going to her room, thinking that the sooner she leaves that house, the better. The next day at the Adelhart mansion, we see Cassian in his office when one of his assistants comes to report on the investigation. The assistant says that although Count Barnine seems to care a lot about his daughter in front of others, the truth is that she is neglected by the family. Even the Countess finds ways to mistreat her, sometimes making up excuses to lock her in her room and leave her without food for days. Cassian asks if there's any record of them hitting Isabella. His assistant says no, and Cassian finds it hard to believe that's true. If the family doesn't hit her, then how did she get those marks on her wrist? He decides to assess the situation personally. On the way to the Count's estate, Cassian is deep in thought. He will ask her again how she got those bruises and marks on her wrist. But if it's true that she suffers in the Barnine mansion, what should he do? Stunned by his own indecision and lack of planning, which is unlike him, he continues on to the Count's estate. "Please wait a moment, Your Grace," says one of the servants at the Barnine mansion to the newly arrived Duke Cassian. "Lady Barnine isn't feeling well today. Perhaps it would be best for you to return another time." Despite the butler's insistence, Cassian saw Isabella just yesterday. There's no way she could have gotten that sick from one day to the next. Cassian shows persistence, informing the butler that he will not leave, that he wants to see Lady Barnine right now. Meanwhile, in her room, Bella looks at the bruised swelling on her cheek in the mirror. Despite it, she seems content. Earlier, one of her maids told her that young Master Derek had slipped and fallen down the stairs. She lies on the bed happily, knowing this means she won't have to see Derek for a while. Maybe she should take advantage of the bruise on her cheek as an excuse to sleep in, our protagonist thinks. But her plans are about to be ruined when someone knocks hastily at her door. Frustrated, she allows whoever it is to enter the room. Her personal maid rushes in, desperate, announcing that a guest is waiting for the lady. Isabella is surprised and questions her maid, as she doesn't remember having anything scheduled for today. The maid explains that the guest is Duke Adelhart. Shocked by the sudden visit, Bella wonders if the Duke has come to end the engagement. Placing her hand on her face, she realizes she can't meet the Duke like this, or he'll notice the bruise on her cheek. She asks her maid to apologize to the Duke and inform him that she's not feeling well, and therefore won't be able to see him. Annie leaves and returns a few minutes later, looking worried. Annie explains that the Duke is insisting on seeing her at any cost. He's currently waiting in the mansion's reception room. Both of them sigh in concern, knowing the situation just got more complicated. Realizing she'll have to meet the Duke, Bella asks Annie to help her get ready. Annie prepares Isabella as best she can, even applying makeup. Still, the bruise on Isabella's face is quite visible. Annie starts to get nervous. If the Duke sees the bruise on Bella's face, he'll be furious. Bella gets an idea and asks Annie to bring her a wide-brimmed hat. Wearing the hat tilted to the side where the bruise is, Isabella goes to meet the Duke. At the door to the waiting room, the house butler suggests she return to her chambers. Bella insists, saying the Duke requested her presence. The butler explains that the Countess is currently speaking with the Duke. Bella is surprised to hear this. The Countess? What is she planning? Bella wonders as a smile forms on her face. Now more than ever, she's sure she must enter that room. Confident, Isabella steps into the waiting room. She hears the Countess apologizing to the Duke, saying that Isabella really isn't feeling well today and that he should come back another time. When the Countess notices someone entering, she automatically yells at them, saying she told them not to let anyone in. Surprised to see Isabella, she is clearly worried. If the Duke sees Isabella's bruised face, it will certainly damage the Countess's reputation. Cassian, seeing Isabella, scolds her for taking so long. She apologizes, saying she wasn't prepared to receive guests since the Duke didn't inform her beforehand that he would come. Cassian notices Isabella's unnecessary hat, and she, noticing his gaze, pulls the brim down further. But he came here to check exactly that. He walks up to Isabella and removes the hat from her head. Revealing the bruise on Isabella's face, the Duke asks if she's going to use the excuse that she got hurt by herself again. Trying to cover it up, the Countess comments that Isabella is extremely clumsy. Cassian replies that he wants to hear what happened from Isabella herself. Did someone do this to you? Bella doesn't understand why he's so angry. Why does he care what happens to her? Cassian examines the bruise on Bella's face, concluding that someone clearly slapped or punched her. Who did this? Who dared to lay a hand on my fiancé? He says angrily, looking at the Countess. Feeling the Duke's threatening aura, the Countess defends herself, swearing that she didn't do anything, she would never dare. Bella, still trying to cover things up, says it wasn't a slap. The Duke thinks for a moment. He decides he will no longer allow his fiancée to suffer. From today forward, Isabella will live with him at the Adelhart estate. Bella is surprised, but has no time to say anything because the Duke takes her hand. He starts leading her toward the exit of the mansion to his carriage. In the carriage, Isabella asks, "Just what are you trying to do, Your Grace?" "I should be asking you the same thing, Lady Barnine. Enduring constant abuse from your family and still choosing to cancel the engagement instead of asking me for help? As I said before, matters of my family are none of your concern," Isabella retorts. The Duke becomes irritated upon hearing that and asks if she's acting this way because she doesn't want to marry him. She responds that it's more or less that. "Then let me give you the answer I owe you. Once we got engaged and you became my fiancé, that means you will be my fiancé forever. I have no intention of canceling our engagement," says Cassian with a serious expression. He adds that, as her fiancé, he has the right and the duty to care about what happens to her and to ensure her well-being. "Why do you make things so complicated? Why are you doing this?" Isabella asks. Cassian tells her that now that they're engaged, it means she belongs to him now. I don't understand what goes on in our protagonist's head. She read the novel. She literally knows his character, knows he suffers from tremendous guilt about not being able to help his sister from their father. Did she honestly think he would simply ignore someone else in a similar situation? Our protagonist doesn't seem to understand Cassian. She knows he doesn't want to marry her. Cassian remains silent, thoughtful for a moment. "I have no intention of forcing you to marry me, but for now I want you to stay at my estate. Anyone who saw what the Barnines do to you would do the same as I'm doing. Protect you." Isabella listens silently to Cassian's words. She knows it's probably true, and since she is publicly his fiancée, she couldn't stay anywhere else but in his home or hers. At the Adelhart estate, Bella is formally received by the head butler, Frank Odello. Cassian instructs Frank that Isabella will be staying at the estate for a while. Frank escorts Isabella to the room she'll be using, a large and well-decorated room. As if he already knew what happened that brought her to live with the Duke, he also introduces the family doctor to her, informing her that he will be responsible for treating her injuries. Bella initially tries to refuse, but the doctor informs her that it was a direct order from the Duke. Realizing that if she refuses the doctor, the Duke will probably get upset, she accepts the treatment. The doctor then examines and treats her injuries. Concerned by the number of bruises and cuts, he asks if she needs him to check or treat any other wounds. As if nothing had happened. Or maybe because she's used to it. Bella thanks the doctor, saying she's fine. The doctor then leaves, leaving our protagonist alone, now thinking about how to adjust her plans to the recent changes. She doesn't have enough knowledge about the world she's in to simply run away unprepared. Her initial plan was to sell information to Samuel and leave once she had a decent savings. But with the recent changes, she feels unsure about this plan. Besides that, she can't stop worrying about Lucius. If she steps out of the picture, there's no way to ensure he finds a stepmother who treats him well. Lucius needs to be Cassian's successor. From the moment Isabella revealed to Cassian who Lucius's biological father is, she feels responsible for helping Lucius break the curse. She knows her reasons don't justify an unmarried lady staying in the home of an unmarried man. Her thoughts are interrupted by a knock on the door. Lucius, probably aware of Isabella's arrival, came to speak with her. He gets worried when he sees the bandage on Isabella's face and asks what happened. Bella deflects, saying it was nothing. Lucius hesitates for a moment, but then gathers his courage and invites Isabella for a walk in the estate's gardens. With a warm and lovely smile, Isabella accepts Lucius's invitation. The two walk peacefully through the gardens of the Adelhart estate. Isabella notices some clovers growing in the garden. She comments about them to Lucius, but he seems to have no idea what clovers are. Isabella explains that clovers are a type of herb and usually have 3 leaves. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you can find a 4-leaf clover. It's said that 4-leaf clovers make your wishes come true. Lucius is impressed and asks Bella if she has ever found a 4-leaf clover. Bella says she once tried to find one, but she wasn't lucky. Lucius then asks if she did find one, what wish she would make. Isabella pauses for a moment in thought. But before she can answer Lucius, one of the maids comes to inform them that it's time for dinner. Bella tells Lucius that she enjoyed their walk so much that she didn't even notice how quickly time had passed. She invites Lucius to come inside, but he takes a moment to react as he was focused on observing the clovers. In the dining room, the atmosphere is so tense that Bella feels she could cut it with a knife. Cassian notices Bella's discomfort and asks if she doesn't like the food. Bella says the food is great, but she's just not very hungry today. Lucius takes the opportunity to ask his father if Lady Barnine will be staying with them indefinitely. Cassian states that nothing has been decided yet, but that she will be staying for now. Hearing Cassian's response, Lucius turns to Isabella and asks if it's really true that 4-leaf clovers make wishes come true. Isabella regrets having mentioned the clover to Lucius. She tells him the story of the 4-leaf clover is just a myth, and there's no proof it's real. Already imagining what Lucius must be thinking, Isabella warns him not to waste his time trying to find one. Later that night, heavy rain falls over the Adelhart estate. Isabella approaches her bedroom window, watching the rain. Looking out toward the garden, she notices a silhouette. Lucius asking about the clover comes to mind, and then Isabella realizes it's probably Lucius out there in the rain. The moment she realizes this, she runs desperately into the garden. Isabella finds Lucius collapsed near the flower bed where they had seen the clovers earlier. She tries to wake him, asking worriedly what he was doing outside in that rain. Pulling Lucius onto her lap, she begins to cry. "I told you clovers don't make wishes come true." With a weak voice, Lucius tries to explain, "But Lady Barnine..." "I found one," says Lucius with an innocent smile, holding a 4-leaf clover in his hand. The scene cuts to the next day. Lucius has apparently caught a cold, and the family doctor has been called. Isabella and Cassian are worried about him, but the doctor assures them he'll be fine. He just needs some rest. With that news, Cassian suggests Isabella go get some rest too. Bella, feeling a little guilty that Lucius got sick and still worried about him, tells the Duke she'll stay with Lucius a bit longer. Cassian signals for Lucius's personal maid to leave the room. Left alone with Lucius, she sits beside his bed, concerned. Lucius wakes up confused and asks for his nanny. Isabella calms him, saying she's there with him. Lucius starts looking around as if searching for something. Realizing this, Isabella hands him the 4-leaf clover. He smiles, still flushed with fever, happy that he didn't lose his precious clover. Isabella scolds him, saying he should have listened to her. To Bella's surprise, Lucius keeps a sweet smile on his face and says he picked the clover for her, since she had said she once searched for one. "Please, Lady Isabella, make your wish," he says kindly. Lucius's gesture moves Isabella to tears. Both in her past life and in this one, she never had anyone who cared about her like that. Sleepily, Lucius says he wants Isabella's wishes to come true. "My wish? I can't really remember what I wished for. Was it to have my family back? Was that really it? Was a family truly what I wanted? Or did I simply dream of being loved?" Returning from her thoughts, Isabella gently caresses Lucius's hair as he falls asleep. Watching him sleep, she makes a decision to make both of their wishes come true. Isabella goes to Cassian's office, determined. He receives her politely, but with a certain curiosity. "We're getting married," says Isabella to the Duke. Bella says that in return, she wants all matters related to Lucius's biological father to be handled with her and not with Count Barnine. Surprised, he questions Isabella's sudden change of heart. Our protagonist gets straight to the point, saying her decision is because of little Lucius. When Cassian asks what Lucius did to make her change her mind, Bella replies with a tender smile that it's a secret between them. Regaining her composure quickly, Isabella says that once she passes on the information, she will request a divorce. She emphasizes that she's doing this only for Lucius, and those are her conditions for marrying. Isabella knows that helping Cassian free Lucius from the curse and helping Arya heal so she can eventually cure Lucius will take at least 3 years. Isabella's thoughts are interrupted by Cassian, with a pained expression, asking why she hates him so much. Bella says she doesn't hate him, but she wants to be married to a man she loves. He asks her where she'll go after the divorce, and she replies that she'll think about that when the time comes. So it's fine with you that we get divorced? You agree to the terms? Bella asks. Cassian doesn't say yes or no, only that he'll think about the divorce, but regarding the part about making the deal with her instead of Count Barnine, that part he agrees to. Satisfied with Cassian's answer, Bella asks that the agreement be documented and signed by both of them. Honestly, I don't know why protagonists always want to document their fake marriage. It ends up causing more trouble than helping them. Unlike me, Cassian agrees to document the agreement and will ask his assistant to draft the contract, with the note that they'll discuss the details of the divorce at another time. Isabella agrees and adds one more thing. During the time they are married, she wants Cassian to give more attention to Lucius. Cassian feels a bit offended by Bella's request. After all, in his view, he has been giving attention to Lucius. Bella points out that even if he tries hard, Lucius might not understand the way Cassian expresses his feelings toward his son. For example, right now, Lucius is bedridden, and Cassian is in the office buried in work. Cassian explains that since the doctor said Lucius is fine and will recover soon, he felt reassured. From an observer's point of view, Bella explains to Cassian that she bets Lucius feels like Cassian doesn't care about him, that he's just a burden to his father. But she's certain that's not the truth. After all, he's so worried about his son that he's having trouble focusing on the documents in front of him. Not wanting to admit defeat, Cassian says he doesn't understand what Bella is trying to say. Confident, Bella says she'll give Cassian some advice. Stop working right now and go spend some time with your son. Back to work and alone in his office again, Cassian arranges the documents and leans back in his chair, exhausted. He recalls the conversation he had earlier with Isabella. Seeing her confident face and her concern for Lucius's well-being made him act impulsively and agree to sign the contract. Where will she go after they divorce? What if she ends up in the Barnine's clutches again? Why do I care so much about her? What did she do to enchant me like this? Cassian decides to follow Isabella's advice and goes to his son's room. Upon entering, he asks the nanny not to make noise so she doesn't wake him. But with a smile, she tells him Lucius was waiting for him. She leaves the two of them alone, wishing them a pleasant time together. Cassian sees Lucius sleeping peacefully. He looks at his son's small hand and instinctively holds it, remembering the past, when he held Lucius's hand for the first time. Lucius was just a baby. That was the last time he remembers holding his hand. That day, he swore that if something happened to Julia, he would do everything in his power to protect Lucius. Cassian believed he was staying loyal to his promise, and that keeping some distance from Lucius was better because he thought Lucius was afraid of him for being his father. But why did Lady Barnine act like he was doing something wrong? Lucius, just waking up, gets excited when he sees his father. He asks if he came to see him. Cassian nods. Yes. Lucius starts giggling with joy. Cassian, curious, asks why he's so happy and excited. I'm just happy that you're here. Because of Cassian's past, he initially doesn't understand why his son said he was happy just because he was there. Even though he doesn't understand, Cassian can't help but feel a warmth in his chest. Trying not to show it, he tells his son to go to sleep. It's getting late. Poor Cassian. His father must have been a monster for him to think the best a father can do is support his child from the shadows. Thank goodness our protagonist gave him a nudge about that. The scene cuts to the next day. Isabella is reviewing the marriage contract. She notices that the contract doesn't include any clause about the divorce, and she questions Cassian about it. Although they had agreed to discuss the details later, she wants it written in the contract that they will eventually divorce. Cassian didn't see the need to include it since they had agreed to discuss it in the future. But Isabella is adamant about it. An awkward silence fills the room for a few seconds. It's only broken when Isabella begins dictating what should be added to the contract, that both parties will discuss the details of the divorce in the future. Cassian remains silent as Isabella continues pressing him, and his assistant asks if he should add the clause. He finally gives in to the pressure and orders his assistant to add the divorce clause to the contract to satisfy Isabella. Isabella also requests that her personal maid, Annie, come to stay at the Adelhart estate. With the contract settled, they estimate that with all the preparations, the wedding should take place in 3 months. Isabella would like a small and discreet wedding, but Cassian's assistant says that won't be possible, as the Adelhart family is highly important in the Empire. Understanding the Adelhart family's position, our protagonist leaves the wedding preparations in the assistant's hands. With that, he leaves, and Cassian and Isabella are left alone. With a magical barrier preventing sound from leaving the room, Isabella gets straight to the point. She reveals that Lucius's biological father is Lionel Caesea, the prince of the kingdom of Caesea. The news shocks Cassian, who asks if she's sure Lionel is really the biological father, which, for our protagonist, is no surprise. Lionel has a bad reputation. Lionel is the illegitimate son of the current king of Caesea. Maybe he takes after his father or had self-esteem issues because he caused trouble everywhere he went. His father, fed up with his troublemaking son, sent him to the Magic Academy. That's where he met Julia Adelhart. Lionel was attentive and caring toward Julia. But being a bastard prince, he worried that Julia would end up associated with the wrong people because of him. So he decided to keep their relationship a secret. The only person who knew about them was Count Barnine. Clearly, Lionel was mixed up with the wrong people if his confidant was Count Barnine. But an even bigger problem was the curse of the Celsia family, which manifested both in Lionel and in his son, Lucius. Another thing that remained a mystery in the story was that, as soon as Lionel found out Julia was pregnant, he quickly returned home to ask permission to marry Julia. But he never came back. After meeting Julia, Lionel stopped being a troublemaker and truly began to change. So why didn't he return? We find out that our protagonist never finished the novel, so she didn't reach the part where that was explained. Finishing processing the information Isabella just shared, Cassian says he will gather more information about Lionel. Feeling like things are heading in the right direction, our protagonist is happy, because it seems she'll be able to make Lucius's dreams come true. Isabella goes to visit Lucius, and on the way to his room, she comes across a maid carrying a plate of food. She asks if that's young Master Lucius's meal, and the maid confirms it is. Bella then offers to take the meal herself. At first, the maid refuses, but Bella insists, saying it's fine and she would love to do it, so the maid gives in. After politely knocking on the door, Isabella enters Lucius's room, wanting to know how he's feeling. Lucius is happy and excited to see Isabella. She gives him the meal, saying he has to eat everything because the chef made that meal especially for him. Lucius wants to know if he'll grow as tall as his father if he eats everything properly. Isabella smiles, thinking how adorable Lucius is, and how much he must love Cassian. After finishing his meal, Lucius says he has something to give to Isabella. He picks up a book and flips through it until he finds the 4-leaf clover he had kept inside. Showing the clover to Isabella, he says he wants her to have it. Isabella refuses, saying she no longer needs the clover, because her wish has already come true. Instead, Lucius should keep the clover and make a wish himself. Lightly squeezing his hands together, Lucius thinks about what he would wish for. My wish is for you, Lady Barnine, to be my stepmother. But if you don't want that, I understand. Before Lucius can finish his sentence, Isabella replies, "Of course. I would love to be your stepmother." Lucius becomes so happy and emotional with Isabella's response that his eyes fill with tears of joy. Trying to hold back the tears, Lucius promises that he'll be a good boy and behave. Isabella stretches out her arms, leans toward Lucius, and hugs him. "You don't have to be a good boy. Just be yourself, because you deserve to be loved. I want you to be happy." Still in disbelief and overwhelmed, Lucius asks if she'll really be happy being his stepmother. With a beautiful smile, Isabella says that of course she'll be happy. Being with him brings her joy. Meanwhile, Cassian is in his office, digesting the information that Lucius's biological father is Lionel. He remembers that in the past, he once asked Julia who the man was who got her pregnant and why he never came to visit her. Julia replied that he was probably having trouble convincing his family to give their blessing for them to marry. At the time, Cassian thought Julia was ashamed and lying about the father of her child. After all, she was an Adelhart. What family would refuse to let their son marry the daughter of Duke Adelhart? Did that bastard even know she was pregnant? But Julia always defended him, saying that he did know about the pregnancy and that it was precisely why he returned to his family to ask for permission. She even said he had already chosen the child's name. If it was a girl, she would be named Lucia. And if a boy, Lucius. always with a tender smile on her face when she talked about her beloved, as if she were sure her beloved would never abandon her. She asked Cassian to take care of her while her beloved was gone. That irritated Cassian. Why did his sister trust a bastard who had clearly abandoned her? Why was she waiting for him? Back then, he had no idea Julia's beloved was a troubled prince from Caesia's royal family. But regardless of that, how dare he do this to Julia? Snapping out of his thoughts, Cassian orders his assistant to investigate everything he can about Lionel Caesia, the royal family, and the connection between Count Barnine and the royal family. The assistant bows to Cassian, accepting the Duke's command, and informs him that he has also prepared a letter to send to Count Barnine regarding the marriage and Lady Barnine's request. After that, Cassian walks into another room. He pulls a red ribbon hidden in one of the books, causing the bookshelf to move and reveal a hidden section of the room. "It's been 7 years," he says, looking at something covered with a red cloth. He pulls off the cloth, revealing a portrait of his sister, Julia Adelhart. As if she could hear him, he begins to speak to his sister, saying that recently he met someone who reminds him of her. Because, like Julia, this person hides her pain. And every time she hides things from him, it feels like he's losing her. It was just a bruise. So why did it affect me so much? Why can't I get her out of my head? Not only that, but he knows she's being mistreated by her family. Yet even so, she continues to smile so gently. A few days later, Isabella and Lucius are playing hide-and-seek around the mansion. Isabella walks around searching for Lucius. She enters one of the rooms, calling out to him. Meanwhile, little Lucius is mischievously hiding under a table, convinced that she'll never find him there. But Bella can see part of Lucius's body through the gap beneath the table. She finds it adorable, and even though she knows where he is, she keeps pretending to look around the room. Until finally, she finds him. Lucius pouts, upset that he got found again. Determined to find a really good hiding spot this time, he starts looking for new places around the mansion. He enters a room he's never been in before. Upon entering, he sees a long red ribbon sticking out from one of the books on the shelf. Pulling the ribbon causes the bookshelf to move, revealing a secret room. Upon entering the room, he sees something on an easel covered by a red cloth. Curiously, he pulls the red cloth off, revealing the portrait of Julia. He blushes, impressed by the beauty of the woman in the painting, wondering who that beautiful angel could be. The scene cuts to the dining hall where Lucius and Isabella are having lunch. Isabella invites Lucius for a walk in the gardens once they finish eating. But Lucius says he would like to go somewhere different today. A place where there's a painting of an angel. "An angel, you say?" asks Bella. "Yes, a beautiful angel with golden hair. I really want to show you the painting." After lunch, Lucius takes Isabella to the secret room where the angel painting is. He pulls off the red cloth covering the painting and proudly shows it to her. Isabella is surprised to realize that the angel Lucius was referring to is Julia Adelhart. They need to get out of there before Cassian finds them. But before she can say anything, Lucius asks if she thinks his mother was as beautiful as the angel in the painting. Bella, incredulous, asks if he misses his mother. At that exact moment, Cassian enters the room and asks angrily what they are doing there. Sensing Cassian's irritation, Lucius steps forward and explains that he brought Lady Isabella there. "You're the one who found this room?" asks Cassian with a piercing look at Lucius. "Yes, I found it while playing, and I asked Lady Barnine to come here with me. Please don't be mad at her, father." Still with a serious look, Cassian tells Lucius that he must never return to that room again. Sad, Lucius simply answers yes to his father. Later that same day, Lucius and Isabella are lying in bed. Lucius is clearly upset and worried. Isabella, noticing this, asks if he would like to hear a bedtime story. Instead of answering, Lucius asks Bella if she thinks his father is still mad at him. Isabella tries to reassure Lucius, saying that Cassian isn't mad at him. Covering part of his face with the blanket, Lucius says that his father's voice sounded scary and that it seemed like he got very angry. Bella knows Cassian was irritated. Even for her, his voice was frightening. But she's certain he was upset with himself, not with Lucius. Maybe the guilt of not being able to save his sister makes him feel guilty about Lucius. With a gentle pat on Lucius's arm as if rocking him, Isabella says the Duke was probably just very tired. He's been very busy lately. Lucius seems to accept Isabella's explanation. Seeing that, Isabella suggests telling Lucius a story about a noble and brave knight. He perks up again, excited to hear the story. "My nanny said my father is so strong he could fight dragons and win." "Of course he could. Do you want to be like your father when you grow up?" asks Bella, to which Lucius excitedly replies, "Yes." She then asks if he plans to fight dragons when he grows up, reminding him that dragons are scary. Lucius thinks for a moment. "If I become a knight, I'd do my best to protect you, Lady Barnine," Lucius replies, full of enthusiasm. Once again, Lucius's sweet and affectionate gestures catch Isabella off guard. He promises to eat properly so he can grow and become as strong as his father. Strong enough to protect Isabella if needed. Once again, Lucius's adorable and caring gestures surprise Isabella, and she starts crying without realizing it. Lucius becomes worried when he sees her crying, thinking he did something wrong. Wiping her tears, Isabella says everything's fine. She's just emotional and happy to know he wants to protect her. "Thank you, my little lord." The next morning, Cassian doesn't join Lucius and Isabella for breakfast, and this makes Lucius very nervous, thinking his father is still mad at him. "Don't overthink it. I'm sure he's just busy," says Bella, trying to reassure him. Despite this, Isabella notices that Cassian seems to be purposefully avoiding Lucius. But why would he do that? Unfortunately, the author of the novel doesn't provide much detailed information about Cassian. In the novel Area of Light, the story begins just as Lucius succeeds Cassian and becomes the Duke of Adelhart, which means Cassian had already passed away when the story began. Very little is mentioned about Cassian, other than that Lucius referred to him as having been a strict father, and that he didn't like Isabella and only married her because of Count Barnine's blackmail. Because of this, our protagonist has no idea why Cassian is acting this way. Even so, she knows that for the sake of them both, she needs to do something about it. Determined, she goes to Cassian's office and knocks timidly on the door. Cassian allows her in, but still seems irritated, getting straight to the point and asking Bella what she wants to discuss. As soon as she says she wants to talk about what happened yesterday, Cassian cuts her off, saying there's nothing to talk about. And even with her saying that Lucius is very worried about it, Cassian avoids the subject, stating that it's none of her business. A bit more confident, Isabella says that one of the clauses in the contract was that he would pay more attention to Lucius. Cassian keeps refusing to talk about it, saying that subject has nothing to do with the contract terms. Isabella argues again against Cassian's point, but notices something when she looks directly at him. He's upset, worried, and ashamed. He looks like he could cry at any moment. Maybe he's worried that the world will find out the secret about Lucius's birth. Bella concludes, but even so, avoiding the problem won't solve anything. With more calm, trying to understand both sides, Isabella says that Lucius is curious about his mother, and that at some point Cassian will have to talk to him about it. "Why does Lucius have to know about this?" says Cassian, clenching his hand on the desk. "I'll make sure he never finds out." Cassian's voice sounds desperate as he says this. "You can't keep the secret forever," says Isabella, secretly wishing her words weren't true. She read the novel. She knows that unfortunately, Lucius finds out the entire truth about his birth after Cassian's death. She wonders how he must have felt discovering that the father he knew wasn't really his biological father. Even worse, Bella knows that in the novel, when Lucius finds out Cassian hid the truth from him, he feels betrayed, angry, and starts questioning whether Cassian ever truly loved him as a son. And while Lucius was going through all of that, Cassian wasn't there to tell him it wasn't true and that he had always loved his son. After remembering all that, Isabella tells Cassian that it's better he be the one to tell Lucius the truth before he hears it from someone else. Upon hearing that, Cassian suddenly lunges toward Isabella and grabs her arms. "I don't care what people say. Lucius is my son." Realizing he lost control, Cassian slowly lets go of Isabella's arms, telling her that he will handle things his own way, and that this problem has nothing to do with the contract. "But Lucius will think of Lady Adelhart as his aunt," says Isabella. "It would be strange not to tell him about his aunt. At the very least, tell him about your sister. That way he won't start making up theories about why you never mentioned her before." Cassian runs a hand through his hair, thoughtful, and complains about how invested Isabella is in matters involving his family. Bella says that just like Lucius, she too is an illegitimate child. She knows very well what it's like to grow up without a mother. Her words lightly shock Cassian. "I'd like to try to understand him for the sake of his happiness," says Bella, showing Cassian a gentle smile before leaving his office. Cassian is left alone, arms crossed,